am happy to announce that the real hero of Vinland Saga has finally arrived. Yes, the real, honest to God, most badass version of Thorfinn has finally arrived. Thank God we can all have a round of applause that his sheer awesomeness has brightened up our screens and improved our lives in just those few seconds of screen time that he had in this episode, but we'll have many, many more moments with him to come. The real Thorfinn has arrived. Please bow at this precious man's feet. This was yet again another fantastic episode of Season 2 of Vinland Saga, and I really liked how it towed the line between having a lot of comedy and a lot of levity with, at the same time, having this daunting feeling of dread kind of looming in the background, mostly coming from Canute and Canute's character development to the kind of person that he is right now and the lengths of which he's willing to go to accomplish his goals. Canute has become a terrifying figure within this world of Vinland Saga, and I couldn't be more here for it. I love it so much. Now, a couple of interesting things to note. Once again, I double-checked the manga volume, and this episode, or this sequence of Vinland Saga, is doing what it seemed like they were going to do in the last episode, because in the last episode I noticed they moved a few scenes around in the manga, because, without spoiling anything, in the manga, when Ketil goes to visit King Harald, who he finds out he's dead and now must talk to King Canute, while that's going on, there's also a bit of drama that's happening on the farm, which I will not spoil, but these two things are happening simultaneously. But it looks like the anime is going to focus on this stuff happening with Canute over here first, and then it's going to go back and touch on the stuff that's happening at the farm, which is an interesting way to do it. That way, you get one full idea of what's happening rather than kind of jumping back and forth between chapters. So I don't mind it. You know, I'm not upset about it. I'm not really upset. I don't think it really ruins the flow of the story whatsoever. I think you're still going to be able to understand everything that's happening. I think it's just a matter of understanding that these things are happening at the same time that the anime will have to get across. But beyond that, I think it's doing a fantastic job. So it completely skips over the end of chapter 73 and skips all of chapter 74, and this episode focuses on chapter 75 and 76 of the manga. So that's in book 6 if you want to follow along, or if you're collecting the manga. So we're skipping over one chapter, and then this episode is fully the next two chapters. Nothing significant in the way of anime filler or added scenes that I could notice. Again, I just kind of skim through the manga after the episode. I don't go back and reread the entire chapters. I'm just kind of like looking it over, seeing if I notice any kind of standout differences, but I didn't really notice anything this time around. And this episode, like I said, goes back and forth between a lot of humorous aspects and also kind of the darkly serious aspects. So let's start with the more humorous aspects first. So that essentially comes with the interaction of characters that wouldn't normally interact. And I really love that kind of stuff in storytelling, where you take people that are from completely different walks of life, or personalities that you know are going to clash in a drastic way, and then you stick those characters together. I love it so much. So the first thing that happens is that you have Olmar running into Thorfinn, the other Thorfinn. Yes, there is going to be a second character named Thorfinn in Vinland Saga now, but we pretty much just call him Bug Eyes, because he has big eyes, and that way it's not super confusing. But, I mean, half the characters' names begin with Thor anyways, so let's just go for it. This is the real Thorfinn, all right? So he bumps into Olmar, and of course Olmar is kind of like showing off, trying to be brash, and he's here for a purpose. He's here for a reason. Like, he wants to prove himself. He wants to be somebody like Torgil, like his brother, somebody he looks up to, and somebody who he envisions who his father was. You know, the Iron Fist Ketil, which we know is pretty much a big fat lie at this point. So he wants to kind of prove himself in that manly way. And so the very first instant he gets to where there's a confrontation, he's like, all right, let's do this. He's yelling at him. He pulls out his sword in public. And I love at the same time, too, Bug Eyes is definitely trying to pull a scam on him by running into him, making him ruin the rugs that he was going to sell, therefore making him have to buy them. So they're both like completely just trying to like bitch out each other. It's so funny how they're just like, they're both just young, inexperienced, just doing their thing, just both kind of being pricks in their own way. And I love how both their father figures show up at the same time to basically chew him out and try to teach him the correct way. You got Ketil's like, dude, like, we need to make a good impression. Like, you can't just go into town and start waving your sword around. And then, of course, Olmar embarrasses him even further going forward. And then, Leif Erikson finally comes out and saying that he wanted to see Bug Eyes defuse the situation properly. completely failed on all levels. So take it to the older, wiser, mentor figures to come out. And of course, it would be confusing if you are a viewer, kind of coming into, or even a reader during this scene, to hear Leif Erikson say that this is his son. Because what? We've known Leif Erikson as a character for plenty of time now. He's never mentioned having a son. Well, not actually his son. He is another Thorfinn that he was searching for Thorfinn, and he found a person with a similar build, similar hairstyle, similar look, and basically kind of adopted him along the way, kind of made him his surrogate son or his adoptive son. So not his actual biological son, but still kind of treating him that way and, filling the gap, until he finds the actual Thorfinn. So this is a chance encounter that you could say is extremely convenient for storytelling purposes, but it's also not quite out of the realm of possibility that these characters would meet in a busy town on the docks like this. Leif Erikson is traveling from place to place looking for Thorfinn. Ketil is here for a purpose as well. I mean, this is where like a community of people exist that are exchanging goods and talking, and you would be able to get information. It's not like completely out of the realm of possibility, and it's just one of those things that you just kind of go with it. They run into each other. It is what it is. And because of this, Leif finds out that Ketil does have a slave named Thorfinn who has, again, like similar build, similar hair color. So he wants to go check it out. So Leif is definitely going to be joining, Ketil on their ride back if they get a ride back. Now, this also coincides with Ketil coming to see King Harald, who is, of course, dead. So he's like, shit, I brought him all these gifts. We got a kind of a good deal in place where I bring him all this stuff and I get to do everything I want on my farm. And we got a good system going, okay? So now Harald's dead. So, okay, now I got to meet with King Canute and try to like establish a good rapport. it just goes completely in the opposite direction. So Ketil's there, he's bowing, he's being polite, he's like, I'm gonna give you all these goods I was gonna give Harald, man. This all comes from my farm, thank you, King Canute, thank you for supporting me. And then Olmar's got to fuck it all up because he's got to show off and he's got to try to get himself within the military forces of Canute. He stands up, draws his sword in front of a king. Just no, completely embarrasses his dad, embarrasses his brother as well. I mean, even though Torgil is a piece of shit, I mean, it's still a very embarrassing moment for him. And then Canute, the gracious King Canute himself is like, all right, bro. Like, okay, let's see what you got. Let's see your swordsmanship skills. They pull out this pig. It's like, cut it up as if it was a human. Do it. And of course, once again, Olmar completely botches it, and it was so funny. It's funny in the manga, but it's even funnier in animation because you see him like trying to saw with a sword, and you're just like, oh my god, it's so cringe, like secondhand embarrassment. And then Canute, the absolute motherfucking professional that he is, was like, good display. I'll give you an answer in the morning, knowing full well that this is ridiculous. But Canute is a very, very smart and forward-thinking individual, and he realizes that he can use Olmar in this moment. Not to be a soldier, but for other reasons. And so we got to get into the more serious aspects of this episode, and that all deals with Canute. Now, in the beginning of the episode, Canute is trying to get better at swordsmanship. Not only is he a king now, but he has to be able to present himself in a strong way in front of people that are going to take orders from him. I mean, it's one thing to take orders from, a king that's been established for a very, very long time that might be older, might not be as capable physically anymore. But Canute's still a young man. He's of fighting age. He should be able to fight. And so you're going to lose the loyalty of your crew, if they feel basic. I mean, to put it bluntly, like if they feel like you're a pussy, if they feel like you can't even handle yourself, like, why am I listening to this guy? It's something that Canute needs. He needs that military force. He needs to be able to conquer because he is trying to create as much peace as he can by conquering. Therefore, his military needs to be able to listen to him. So he needs to, up his skills physically. So he's got the guy Wolf training him. Wolf's a badass. You don't get a whole lot of him in this episode, but he is super, super cool. I can't wait to see more of him in the anime. But then there is, of course, the political aspect of it as well. So not just the physical and military aspect, but the political aspect, which is like, hey, we don't got enough money. And isn't that always the case, right? And so it's like, what do? We either raise taxes or we make our military force smaller, which none of those things Canute is going to do because he can't lose the will of the people. He needs them to be loyal subjects. He's not going to raise the taxes on them, and he's definitely not going to decrease his military forces. So he needs to acquire something else, right? And I think that you can see the beginning of the gears starting to turn in his head. And at the end of this episode, after he sees Olmar's foolish display, he notices that he might be able to use Olmar towards this benefit. And not everything is completely laid out in this episode, so it's not necessarily that I don't want to get into it too deeply to spoil it for you guys, but I think you can kind of put the pieces together. Just within this episode, you see that Ketil has a very plentiful farm, lots of ideas of wealth is there. You see that you have a brash, young, whatever Olmar is, just trying to prove himself. So what can we do here? Anyways, great episode. Really, really enjoyed it. Now, I believe the next episode is going to probably finish covering this little segment of Ketil visiting with Canute. And then it's going to go back to the farm. I don't know if we're going to get any of the farm stuff in the next episode. They could play it either way. I could see it going either way because they could draw out a little bit more stuff happening here and make it a full episode. Or they could do like a half and half kind of thing. But regardless, I think that either within the next episode or the one after, we're going to cut back to the farm and see what's going on there. And things are going to get bad here. Things also aren't going to be great over here. And it makes sense because leading into the second half of season 2, we had the build up, we had the setup, we understand the state of all the characters right now, we understand where everybody's at, we understand everybody's intentions. So now it's time to let shit hit the fan, and I can't wait for it. So let me know what you guys thought about Vinland Saga season 2 episode 11 down below in the comments. Let me know all your thoughts, theories, opinions, and so on. Also, guys, if you want to support the channel, I would really appreciate it because YouTube is currently blocking a bunch of my older videos and demonetizing and age restricting a bunch of videos. So it's getting a little bit rough at the moment. I'm trying to counteract it the best I can, but if you want to support the channel on that deeper level, I got channel memberships turned on. I got Patreon, and of course, just liking and commenting on the video helps as well. So thank you guys for watching. Really appreciate it, and I'll see you next week. And actually, if you're a Vinland Saga manga reader, hopefully there's a new chapter coming out within the next week too. So excited for that. All right, we'll see you.